She was just a housekeeper. That's all anyone saw when they looked at Elena Ramos. Simple, quiet, invisible. For 7 years she had cleaned the halls of London's prestigious Ravenhall Conservatory, watching talented students practice their scales while she emptied their trash bins and wiped down their mirrors. Nobody knew that this plain woman in the blue cleaning uniform had once been destined for greatness. Nobody knew that her grandfather had taught her the lost violin techniques of southern Spain, melodies so rare that even world-famous musicians had never heard them. Nobody knew that 20 years ago, Elena Ramos was going to be a concert violinist. All of that ended one terrible night in Madrid when panic froze her hands on stage and shattered her dreams forever. But today everything was about to change. The conservatory was buzzing with excitement. Students clustered in hallways, whispering in nervous excitement. The reason? Professor Miranda Thornhill had arrived. Miranda Thornhill wasn't just any musician. She was a legend, a world-renowned violinist whose reviews could make or destroy careers. She was known for her brutal honesty, her sharp tongue, and her complete intolerance for mediocrity. One harsh word from Miranda Thornhill could end a musician's dreams forever. Elena crept quietly into the back of the auditorium, hoping to watch from the shadows. She had always loved music even if she could no longer play it. The grand hall was packed with students, their instruments gleaming in their laps, backs straight with nervous tension. Professor Thornhill stood at the front like a general inspecting troops. Tall, sharp-featured, with silver hair pulled into a severe twist, she wore a black suit that looked more military than musical. Her voice was ice-cold as she addressed the room. "I'm not here to praise mediocrity," she announced. "Play something worth hearing." One by one, students performed for the legendary professor. Each played beautifully. These were some of the most talented young musicians in Europe. But Miranda's face remained stone-cold, unimpressed. After each performance, she offered nothing but cold criticism and dismissive comments. Then came the moment that would change everything. After a particularly skilled student finished a complex piece, a cruel giggle echoed from the front row. "Maybe the cleaning lady could play better than that," a student muttered loud enough for everyone to hear. Laughter rippled through the room. Professor Thornhill's head snapped toward the sound, her piercing eyes scanning until they landed on Elena, sitting quietly in the back corner. "You," Miranda's voice cut through the laughter like a blade. Elena's blood turned to ice. "You're the cleaner, aren't you?" Elena's mouth went dry. Her heart began hammering against her ribs. I'm just here to watch," she whispered. But Miranda Thornhill smelled blood in the water. A cruel smile played at the corners of her mouth. "Come forward," she commanded. "Let us see what the cleaning lady can do." The room erupted in whispers and snickers. Students exchanged amused glances. This was about to become the most entertaining part of their day, watching the poor housekeeper humiliate herself in front of everyone. Elena stood on shaking legs. Every step toward the stage felt like walking to her execution. The lights seemed blindingly bright. Every eye in the room was on her, most filled with amusement at what they expected to be a spectacle of embarrassment. As Elena reached the stage, Miranda gestured toward a violin resting in its velvet case. "Let's see if the cleaning lady remembers how to hold an instrument," she said, her voice dripping with mockery. "This should be educational." The room fell silent, but it wasn't respectful silence. It was the hush of an audience waiting for a train wreck. If you're enjoying this incredible story, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell. You won't want to miss what happens next. And if this moves you, share it with someone who needs to hear about the power of second chances. Elena's hands trembled as she lifted the violin. The bow felt foreign in her grip after so many years. The stage lights burned hot against her skin. In the front row, she could see students barely containing their laughter, phones secretly recording what they expected to be viral content of the cleaning lady's epic failure. Miranda Thornhill folded her arms, that cruel smile still playing on her lips. She was clearly enjoying this moment of power, this opportunity to mock someone who couldn't fight back. Elena wanted to run. Every muscle in her body screamed at her to put down the violin, walk off that stage and return to the safety of her invisible life. Her throat tightened, her vision blurred. The same panic that had destroyed her career 20 years ago began rising in her chest. But then something stirred deep inside her. A memory of her daughter, young and laughing, begging her mother to play the beautiful songs she remembered from childhood. A memory of her grandfather's weathered hands guiding her fingers on the strings, teaching her melodies that lived in the soul, not on sheet music. Music isn't about perfection, her old teacher had once told her. It's about truth. Elena closed her eyes and played. The first note was fragile, uncertain. It wavered in the air like a question she was afraid to ask. A few students smirked. Someone coughed. They were waiting for the disaster to unfold. Then came the second note. Stronger. Fuller. Then another. And suddenly, Elena wasn't on that stage anymore. She was 10 years old again, practicing on her grandmother's patio under the orange trees in Spain. She was 16, crying after her first competition, not because she had lost, but because the music had moved her so deeply it shook her to her core. The melody that flowed from her violin wasn't perfect in the technical sense, but it was real. Raw. It carried 20 years of heartbreak, of dreams deferred, of a love for music that had never truly died despite everything. The room went completely still. Even the smirking students in the front row found their expressions changing. The cruel amusement faded from their faces, replaced by something deeper, recognition that they were witnessing something extraordinary. Elena swayed gently with the music, her eyes still closed, about dancing across the strings. She wasn't just playing notes on a page. She was telling her story, every joy, every loss, every quiet moment of longing she had carried for 2 decades. The melody built and soared, filled with the wisdom of a grandmother's lullabies and the passion of a grandfather's forgotten techniques. It spoke of love and loss, of dreams broken and hope that refused to die. And then the last note. Soft, final, like a breath held and then released. The hall remained completely silent. Professor Miranda Thornhill stood frozen, her cruel smile long gone. Her face had gone pale, her usual confidence completely shattered. You. She began, then stopped. For the first time in her career, the legendary critic was speechless. The silence stretched on. Students who had been recording with their phones slowly lowered their devices, forgotten. The moment was too sacred for social media, too pure for mockery. Then from the back of the hall, came the sound of slow, deliberate clapping. An old man stood up, Dr. Benedict Alcott, one of Europe's most respected musicologists. He was known for his expertise in forgotten musical traditions, and he never attended student performances. But he was here now and he was clapping. That, he said, his voice carrying clearly through the silent hall, was Zahara phrasing. Miranda's eyes widened. I beg your pardon? Zahara style, Dr. Alcott repeated, walking slowly toward the stage. A regional violin technique from southern Spain. It died out almost a century ago when the oral tradition was broken. No conservatory teaches it. No textbook contains it. No one plays like that anymore. He turned to Elena with wonder in his eyes. Except her. Elena's voice was barely a whisper. My grandfather, he played like that. I used to copy him when I was little. Dr. Alcott smiled with deep appreciation. Of course. That's how it survived, passed through hands not books. He turned to address the entire room. She's not just a violinist. She's a living bridge to a musical tradition we thought was lost forever. Miranda Thornhill stood completely still, her leather portfolio of notes forgotten in her hands. This woman she had mocked, this simple cleaning lady, had just performed something that no amount of training or education could teach. She had played with a voice older than any conservatory, carrying melodies that existed nowhere else in the world. I've judged hundreds of performances, Miranda said quietly, her voice stripped of its earlier arrogance. I know every major school Russian, French, American, Viennese. But this. Her voice trailed off as she looked at Elena with something that might have been awe. This wasn't a performance. This was a voice older than any of us. From somewhere in the audience, one person began to clap. Then another. Then the entire room erupted in applause, not the polite, obligatory clapping of a formal recital, but thunderous, emotional applause that came from the heart. Students who had giggled at Elena minutes before were now on their feet, some with tears in their eyes. Teachers who had witnessed decades of performances were clapping harder than they ever had. Even the reporters in the back had set down their cameras, too moved to focus on getting the story. Elena stood in the center of it all, stunned. The same woman they had laughed at, the invisible housekeeper they had dismissed, was now surrounded by a wave of appreciation so genuine it took her breath away. Miranda Thornhill raised her hand, and the room slowly quieted. She looked directly at Elena, and when she spoke, her voice was completely transformed. I came here today, she said slowly, to teach. She paused, her expression softening into something approaching humility. But today I was taught. The room gasped. The legendary Professor Miranda Thornhill, known for her pride and harsh criticism, stepped forward and bowed her head slightly to Elena. Thank you, Miss Ramos, she said quietly, for reminding us what music is truly meant to be. Later that evening, as Elena walked down the conservatory steps, she heard someone call her name. It was Mr. Hawthorne, the director of the conservatory. "I saw everything," he said, his eyes kind and steady. "You didn't just play, you lit the room on fire." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "I want you here. Not to clean, to play, to teach, to share what only you can share." Elena blinked in surprise. "But I'm just the housekeeper." Mr. Hawthorne shook his head slowly. "No, Elena. You're the heart of this place. You always have been. We just hadn't opened our ears yet." As Elena walked home that evening, her violin case tucked under her arm, her daughter Sophia ran up to meet her. "Did they let you play, Mama?" Sophia asked, her voice bright with excitement. Elena knelt and wrapped her arms around her daughter tightly. "No, Corazon," she whispered with a smile. "They asked me to." Elena's story reminds us that talent doesn't need fancy clothes or expensive education. Real art can live quietly for years, waiting for its moment to speak. And when it does, it doesn't ask for permission, it simply shines. She was never just a housekeeper. She was an artist, a storyteller, a bridge to sounds the world had forgotten it needed. Maybe, like Elena, there's something in you that you've hidden away. Something you've been afraid to show the world. Let this be your sign, it's never too late. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to begin. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe for more incredible tales of hidden talent and second chances. Share this with someone who might need a reminder of their own worth. Let us know in the comments, have you ever hidden a gift that the world needs to see? Remember, your story matters. Your voice deserves to be heard. Until next time, keep believing in the power of quiet brilliance and the beauty of second chances.